Welcome, everyone, to our monthly collaborative connection session. I'd like to advise everyone to update your name and company on your Zoom panel so we can see who everyone is, particularly when we go to the breakout rooms. Again, thank you, everyone, for joining. My name is Norma Watenpaugh, and I'm your host for today's Collaborative Connection Monthly. I'm also the co-producer of this series with ASAP. And today's topic, we're very excited because this is one that I think has a lot of attention in today's press and conversations about AI and how it's being used in the world of partnering. And AI has had a great potential to improve the way alliances are managed by automating tasks that are considered mundane, identifying risks and opportunities. But I think there's also the fear factor and risk of, does it make alliance relationships less human? Or does it complement our human touch in partnering? So what we'd like to do, as we always do, is begin with a poll question to get a feel for the audience's experience with AI and stimulate some thought on the topic. So if you would answer this quick question, how are you currently leveraging AI in your strategic partnerships? We'll give it just a few more seconds here so everyone has a chance to weigh in. All right, then. Well, this is kind of a curious spread of responses. It looks like we have a few early adopters, 5% are using it extensively. 44% who are using it occasionally, I would call experimenters, and not at all. So I hope the not at all are here to take advantage of Will's experience and perspective on how AI can be used to leverage partnering. So if we can move on, I want to introduce Will, but first a little bit of discussion on our flow today. As we do in these collaborative connections, we will have a fireside chat with our featured speaker, and then we'll break into breakout groups where we can discuss the topic among ourselves in more depth. And then we reconvene to share our comments and learnings in the various groups. Our speaker today is Will Yafi, who is CEO and founder of TIDWIT, an ecosystem platform for knowledge sharing and learning enablement that addresses the ecosystem challenge of many-to-many interconnections. Will is uniquely qualified to address our topic today, both as a technologist who uses AI and an expert in strategic partnerships and ecosystems. And I might add, a novelist about an AI love story. So we usually begin with the fun fact about our speaker. So Will, can you tell us about this story?
Sure. Thanks. First of all, Norma, to you and ASAP for inviting me to this webinar. That was I've written several books. This one is the first novel. I gave it a try, and it's a love story. But being the technologist, a hopeless technologist, if you will, I decided to take on or tackle the issue of AI and how it will figure in just daily life, in the future. So I didn't go too far into the future. It was more like, the middle of this century going forward. And I wanted to kind of tackle the relationship between people and how AI, kind of surrounds them. And so it was somewhat of a utopian book, and it's it's basically Yeah, I mean, I don't know what else I can tell you about it, but it was fun writing it. Difficult sometimes because I had to imagine a world that doesn't really exist just yet. But all the technology that I actually used or mentioned in the book is technology that already exists. It's just the ubiquity of that technology that kind of over time changes, how we apply ourselves and how we, be it within personal relationships or business or otherwise. So yeah, the book is titled FINA, and it was a fun ride, but it took me quite a lot longer than I thought it would.
You always do. I also posted the link in the chat box if folks want to look that up on Amazon and have a read. So, ladies and gentlemen, I ask you to use the chat box for questions. We'll get to as many as we can. And also to turn off your audio and video so we can have the best quality on the video session as we talk to Will about more of his thoughts on AI. So, Will, I think we've got quite a mix in the audience of people who are technologists and people who aren't. So if you could kind of set the stage and explain what is AI and what it's not, and what's the fuss about? Why is this of interest?
Yeah, well, it's an interesting question, and I'll try to make it as brief as possible. So AI, in my mind, is the next generation of computing that kind of takes the earlier generations that were focused more on automation and maybe connectivity into the next realm, which is the realm of intelligence, and basically providing more and more utility from computing by adding that layer of intelligence. That's in a very general kind of definitional way. There's three recognized forms of AI. There's without getting too technical, there's the narrow type of AI, sometimes also interchangeably called machine language or machine learning rather than machine language. The second one is a little bit more general AI, and the third is super AI. Let me start with the super AI. The super AI doesn't exist except in Hollywood. It's kind of the Terminator type of AI where you have certain, beings or certain machines that, are super, thoughtful beyond our own level of intelligence as humans. And that doesn't exist. And I don't think anybody in their right mind, even the advanced physicists, think that it's going to exist in the next few decades. So that leaves us with the first two, forms of AI. You've got the narrow AI, which is somewhat algorithmic, if you will. So I'll give you some examples. That might be something like an insurance company that might want to know whether or not a risk exists, and so they develop an algorithm to make something, that allows the assessment of a risk based on certain rules and paradigms that they might have formed over a number of years. And so it's a very narrow type of an application of intelligence that goes a little bit beyond what spreadsheets are capable of doing and into the realm of really kind of coming up with predictive analysis and probabilities and all that kind of stuff. But it's still kind of specific. Other forms of that kind of an AI include things like, for example, facial recognition, stuff like that. So those are called narrow types of AI. The AI that is kind of fascinating a lot of people is the general AI, which is that middle layer. And that's where, for example, OpenAI, which a lot of people now understand, and ChatGPT, they work with, et cetera, is kind of starting to dabble with that general AI. And this is a type of AI or artificial intelligence that essentially almost emulates how we think, because it has been essentially exposed to a vast amount of data. The case of ChatGPT and OpenAI specifically focuses on language, which is why it's called language models. But there are others, other forms of general AI. General AI could be, for example, other examples could be teaching a car how to drive itself. Now, you could kind of look at the driving element, and that was an interesting thing with Tesla when they were, there was an internal debate. Is this more of a machine learning where you kind of put in the algorithms that the car needs to drive itself? Or is it more of a general AI, which is how humans drive, because we are not fed any specific algorithm and then we learn to drive. We just use it, basically our senses, etc. And Elon Musk and those kinds of guys actually, or Elon Musk himself, argued for the latter, which is the general AI, but it has proven to be way more difficult than I expected, just because of the vast amount of possibilities that they can that pop up. And so those are examples of the different kinds of an AI. But bottom line, it's computing to the next, to the next level, driving, closer and closer towards intelligence. Yeah, but I hope that wasn't too long of an answer for quite an interesting and intriguing subject.
Well, I think it'd be interesting when you look at some of the applications, because I know the kind of the narrow AI that you spoke about, the machine learning type, has been widely used in a lot of channel tech programs already, like lead distribution or partner selection and those things where you're chomping through a lot of data. But how can a partner manager, those of us who are managing strategic relationships, how might we use it to create better partner experiences or better partnering outcomes?
Well, great question. And really, we see applicability in both areas, as you well mentioned, the narrow AI applicability within the partner space, as well as the some of the general stuff. So let me give you an example of on both sides. On the narrow side, we're seeing, for example, things being applied within the CRM space or PRM space, partner relationship management, just to be able to do certain functions that do them better. For example, if a partner manager or a VP of multiple partner managers wants to figure out how to prioritize their MDF, their marketing development funds, how would they rank the partners? Is it just sticking the thumb up in the air and just continuing to do how things have been done for decades, or is there a more scientific way of doing it? And with machine learning, what we find is they're able to do this much more effectively because they can design certain algorithms that allow them to see which partners are performing or are likely to perform much more effectively. This is not general AI specifically. This is more based on specific data and algorithms that they can apply. So it's a narrow application that partner managers, partner divisions, et cetera, could apply. Now, where it becomes really interesting is in the predictability element of it, because now there's more and more data that can flow back from partners. And so you could make, better decisions just having that, that kind of algorithm applied more often than you may have been maybe 10 or 20 years ago. So that's kind of one example of narrow. On more general side of AI, we're seeing a lot of partner managers apply AI to generate or regenerate knowledge in order to disseminate that knowledge to their partners much more frequently. One of the biggest challenges that partners face, or partner managers, excuse me, face, is that technology is changing so rapidly that they just can't keep up. And so they don't want to just end up their functions as a message box. What they want their job to be is more about business relationships. And so this kind of more general AI, even if it's something as simple as, coming up with a PowerPoint presentation from a Word doc, right? I mean, that's something that you can actually throw in a Word doc and it'll come up with a PowerPoint presentation. This can save hours of work. And what do you do with those hours of work? Well, you could dedicate to building a business relationship with those partners that otherwise you wouldn't have had time for. So we're seeing the use of general AI or that kind of use in order to, gain back some time and invest that time in business relationships. And so both applications of narrow AI and general AI are things we are seeing in the marketplace.
I think that's generally been advice that at least I've had for clients, is that you want to automate as much of the process as you can to leave time for relationship building, for those things that are value creating. So I think in that sense, you know, AI can be used the same way. It hopefully
100%.
leaves more time for the human interaction. So, you know, what
100%.
about,
And I
yeah,
wanted to add just one thing
address
here in
that
parentheses.
because,
Sorry, go ahead.
no, I just wanted you to address that because I think there's some fears that it will make partner relationships less human.
Exactly. I mean, for a lot of us that, you know, when, you know, that have the white hair back, you know, dating back all the way to Excel sheets and, you know, even Lotus and stuff like that. I mean, those kinds of technologies were brought in to make our job easier and help us do exactly this, which is focus on business relationships, et cetera. But when that in and of itself turns into a problem, because now you're having to manage 20 or 30 different Excel sheets because you're working with so many different partners or so many different providers, then the automation that was supposed to make your job easier is now at a point where it's overwhelming. And so what AI can help these partner managers do, or alliance managers do, is actually gain back some of that time, automating some of these mundane tasks, even if they be computerized mundane tasks. It'll allow them to gain some of that time to go back and invest that time in business relationships. So 100%.
Yeah, I remember spending weeks getting prepped for QBRs, and most of it was just trying to shred through spreadsheets. So
Yeah, I mean, we see
it made
now
my life easier.
some partners spend hours and hours, well, actually in the hundreds of hours, with the simple task of distributing something like a voucher. So if you have a provider that is delivering vouchers to its partner base, well, which partner should get how many vouchers and all that kind of stuff, right? You think that that function is fairly straightforward, but then multiply that by maybe 10 different providers and 100 different partners. And then that starts showing you that that takes, you know, tens, if not hundreds of hours of work, even if it be based on Excel sheets and you know, based, you know, kind of basic type technology. So that is where AI can actually step in and say, well, actually, we can help you automate this process either through algorithms that can help in the distribution process, the narrow AI that I discussed, or even general AI, which allows, you know, such a distribution to happen with a little bit more intelligence.
Well, in fact, that was kind of our next question. You kind of addressed it, but maybe you want to go deeper. Is that one of the challenges of ecosystems is this many-to-many touch points and being able to manage those interactions and knowledge sharing in that context. And
yeah, that's massive. That is massive, because in a lot of, you know, it's interesting when we talk to a lot of the customers, one of their initial kind of, and I think it's the safety zone kind of way of thinking, which is like, you know, this is my way of doing things, and everyone just has to adapt, right? That's not how the world works, particularly in partnerships, because every one of those different, what we call nodes, or every one of those partnerships or partners has their way of doing things. And so today there's very few organizations that only work with one partner, and most organizations work with many different partners. And so you're having to actually adapt your processes across many different partners. That is no easy task. And so this becomes a very big challenge, particularly when you're trying to process you know, data, or you're trying to apply certain processes. And if you try to do it the manual way, it's a nightmare for alliance managers and partner managers. And here there's an interesting thing that we've seen, which is they don't know what they don't know. Meaning, it's not that they are set in their ways, but rather they don't know that they can reach levels of automation that actually can really alleviate a lot of this mundane kind of work. And that is really interesting, because once they do see kind of this many-to-many approach that allows them to offload through artificial intelligence and other automation technologies, you know, that affect their ecosystem, positively, giving them back time to really invest in business relationships, then they see the light. But before that, a lot of these alliance managers and partner managers, are inundated with requests that are fairly mundane, and coming from many different organizations, all somewhat asking for the same thing, but in their own way, because each partner has their own paradigm or their own way of doing things too. So this many-to-many is a hard problem to solve manually. But with AI and automation, it can definitely, give back time, valuable time, to apply more on the business side of things and business development side of things.
So I have a question from the chat, which is, and I don't know if this is in your bailiwick, but I'm interested to know more on how AI is used in partner selection.
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, I think that's more on the machine learning side of things, which is algorithmic at this point. So you could create algorithms. We're seeing, for example, some organizations creating algorithms that rank certain partners based on certain criteria. If you, for example, go into some partner programs, they'll have you fill out some form of a questionnaire that, a partner will fill out. And then, that eventually gets sent into, usually the less developed partner management systems will, on the back end, they've just got a text, and they'll just wrap that text and send it over to a partner recruiter. And then they kind of they either, kind of go through it, and if they just want to grow their partnership, they'll accept it. But if they have a little bit of a higher level of criteria, they might use that in order to judge the worthiness of that partnership or not. So that's the manual way, right? And then there's the automated way of that information feeding into a system that then gives you a specific type of a ranking, almost like a leaderboard kind of a thing, which shows you a benchmark of this is where you want your partners to be, or your partners to be, your futuristic partner to be at. And if they cross that benchmark, then, they can continue with the process of selection, or they're rejected outright. So you could use machine learning for that kind of a benchmarking process. Ultimately, they have to get to a point where they can meet a business, an alliance partner, a recruiter, etc. But then what you're doing essentially is you're filtering out a lot of potential partners that are just not, don't meet that benchmark, saving, time in that selection process. You're seeing that with partners. You're seeing that even with regular hiring. So in some hiring, you go through 2 or 3 steps. Again, they're trying to gauge that, the partner or the person in that case against the benchmark that they'd like to hire for people they want to hire. In some cases, actually, it's using also some AI to analyze, like, the type of responses, the language used, facial, some psychological elements to it. I haven't seen that on the partner side, but I have seen it on the HR side of things. So definitely you could use the technology either algorithmically with narrow AI, or a little bit more intelligently on general AI to analyze and assess the future partnership.
We have another question concern about putting confidential information in something like ChatGPT in an open environment.
That's a great question, actually, and that's something that's near and dear to us. I think one of the key topics that is emerging now is within AI is governance. It's called governance. And what governance is all about is, general AI is a brain, right, that's been developed. And so they fed it a lot of information, be it legally or not, and then they developed the brain as a result of that. But computing brains are not so different from human brains, or at least, in the regard of what you feed it, it'll basically base information, on it, unless you don't put any restrictions. And sometimes it'll invent stuff, hallucination and etc. Now, there's a couple of problems here. I mentioned hallucination or imagining the responses, and there's some really interesting cases that have come out in the news on such hallucination. But there's also the privacy element, which is what the person asking the question is. And there's been cases, for example, like Samsung, that was so excited, they put a bunch of data, through, ChatGPT, and then they found out that some of it had gone public, and so they locked it. So it became almost like they locked it down, shut down AI. That became almost like a binary problem. You either open everything or you close it down. Governance of AI tries to come up with solutions that provide what we call walled gardens that protect the data and keep the knowledge on which you want to apply AI within the limited sphere that you want to apply it. Let me give you an example. If you have an organization such as, let's say, let's use two examples that everybody knows, Microsoft and Amazon, right? I mean, both organizations have a lot of data just on their products, on technologies, and all that kind of stuff. Well, if you're Microsoft, you'd like any questions on your AI to provide answers on Microsoft's AI, and vice versa with Amazon. But if you just put it out there, then whoever is asking the question, they might actually get an answer on AWS AI or AWS solutions or products, right? And you don't want that. And so how do you wall off the information? How do you keep it current? How do you keep it within the realm of whatever is acceptable to you, and how do you keep it private? That is what we call AI governance, and that is a very, very important element of ecosystems that are emerging, because what ecosystems can do is they can wall off the data on which the brain applies, that AI brain can be applied. Kind of like, if you're going to just anecdotally, like if you go to a heart doctor, right? A cardiologist, you want them to know just about cardiology. You don't want them to give you news about, your local football team, right? I mean, okay, it would be nice if they did, but really you want them to really know what they're talking about. The same thing with governance. You're applying knowledge or a brain on themes that you want these users. And that gives, a whole host of benefits, among which, as mentioned, is accuracy. The data is sanitized. It could stay updated, and it's private. And so that's a thematic, which is essentially, again, AI governance, and ecosystems can help deliver that between partnerships and alliances in ways that no other solutions out there can, such as OpenAI or ChatGPT or any other.
So, well, I have 2 minutes for the last question. We've got a lot of activity going on in the chat with additional questions. So I wonder if we can press upon you to maybe answer those offline.
Sure.
So the last question is, what should partner managers do now to prepare themselves to be more effective and productive and to leverage the capabilities of AI?
Well, I think the first thing that partner managers and alliance managers should do is educate themselves on the possibilities of what they can do with AI and what they may not be able to do with AI. So not to be swept away with, some of the fictions of what AI can do or maybe the future, but really to use it for, what it is, what it can deliver today. And I'd advise them to look at those two elements that I mentioned, the narrow AI, which is applying certain algorithms and things like choosing partners or things like distribution of MDF and other functions like that, or general AI to save time on regenerative kind of content, knowledge creation, content dissemination, all that kind of stuff. All that could be used. So educate themselves on that and use tools. Start using tools, that will help familiarize you even more with what AI can deliver for you and your, your job function.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. We've got a lot, we covered a lot of ground, and there's, of course, a lot more that can be covered on this topic. So I appreciate everyone who we had a very active chat discussion, by the way, just questions and responses. So we'll share that with you, and hopefully we can get some answers out to some of these folks I couldn't address their questions in live
You
in
bet,
real
you
time.
bet. Happy to
Someone's
help. I'll
suggesting
answer
we need
questions.
another session, so I'll leave that to the ASAP organizers. Maybe we do another roundtable.
bet.
So I'd like to do a little bit of housekeeping before we move on to the roundtable session. Jennifer is bringing up our PCAP, which is the Partnering Capability Assessment Platform. This was developed by the Association of Strategic Alliance Professionals, leveraging both the ISO standard for business relationships and best practices as known in the ASAP handbook. As Mike Orsini says here, any company that relies on partnerships and ecosystems, that's an important part of their business, which I suspect is everyone here, should regularly assess their partnering capability and maturity. This gives you a baseline to optimize and improve, continuously improve your ability to partner and your ability to deliver value and outcomes through your partnerships. One thing I'd also like to note is that we have an industry benchmark built into the PCAP now. We have over 80 responses from companies across many industries, but predominantly in the technology and biotech areas, since those are large proponents of our membership. And that gives you an ability to determine how you rank competitively in your ability to partner against your peers. Would also like to thank ASAP, who is our, or we want to go to the next slide. Our next session is on in March on Unleash the Possibilities, adopt and master ecosystem strategy to ignite innovation and growth. Both Greg Serafin is an expert and thought leader in ecosystems, as is our moderator, Leona Crowell, who will be guiding that conversation. Next slide, ASAP, who is our co-sponsor and co-producer, offers many resources for the partnering professional in terms of knowledge, content, events, and ability to network with peers, and certification and education programs. Also want to bring to your attention the upcoming summit in May is it Cape Coral, Florida? And both Will and I will be there in different tracks, speaking on different topics, but we will be there and thrilled to meet you, as long as many other notable thought leaders in the area of alliance and ecosystem management, and we hope to see you there. So, as promised, we will then go to our breakout sessions. This is our breakout group question. When you see a breakout room dialog box pop up, please click on that, and our organizers will be placing you in a breakout session. Will be joining us in moving between breakout to breakout group. Please remember to unmute your audio and turn on your video so that we can see each other as we go into a discussion on how you currently are using leveraging AI, or if you're not, what do you think are the potential uses in your alliance?
We had a really great conversation. We were talking about the use of AI in a couple of different ways. One specifically was how it can help bridge the gap in communication. So, for example, when you're dealing with different types of cultures, people coming from different parts of the world and seeking to communicate with each other, how AI can often help us, smooth the edges, if you will, by giving and providing information on how to better communicate, with people from different perspectives. So I thought that was very useful, whether verbally or in email or written communication, which of course that brings up the concerns about, privacy and whatnot. So being very careful about, how that is handled. We also talked about how AI can be very useful for account managers in order to consolidate data. So rather than having to comb through, long histories of what's occurred in a PRM or a CRM with a customer, AI can now take and consolidate that data So what used to take hours to process can be done in minutes. So the CAM or the PM can come to the conversation, much better enabled to have a human-based discussion, with all the data at their fingertips. And then lastly, how sentiment applications within AI can also really help in contact centers by preparing the agent to understand a person better, or even pairing the right agent with the right customer based on the sentiment analysis.
Okay. Anne.
Okay, we talked a lot about confidentiality, and we found that several people in our group had experience with random individuals using ChatGPT and in a business environment, sharing it with their friends, and then thinking about the fact that now once you put it into ChatGPT, there's a lot of information out there. We also talked about what companies are actually investing. Is it only the bigger companies that can afford to invest into the AI technology that we are looking for? There was some conversation about Adobe starting to move into this arena. And we also talked about a good point that David brought up is, who validates the data? If you go back to when we learned, when we first started to get into computing, everyone knew garbage in, garbage out. Well, what garbage is going into these systems and coming out? How do we know what's right and what's not right? And then we did a little brainstorming into, can we use this in a more general area? Sales often gets funded, so can we use some of those tools to do things like reformatting content? We spend way too much time reformatting content into PowerPoints, etc. And can AI write our blogs for us? So really robust conversation. We need another hour.
Yeah, I've been hearing that too. John.
So we had an interesting conversation. Virtually everybody was using machine AI in quite a lot of areas, but we're really just experimenting with the more advanced AI, the general AI. The sorts of things they're doing is certainly using AI, the machine AI to process data more effectively. One person was using it to make comparisons of different contracts from different people and organizations. But then when we talked about the general AI, a bit more caution, particularly for companies operating internationally, where, for instance, European standards of concern about data and where it comes from and where it goes to was different from, say, Japan or from the US. So more cautious there. I think they saw it as best as managing intellectual property and how it's shared. And I think the story of the evening was a lady who had a customer who makes honey and sells honey. And so she always sends at Valentine's Day a little set of advice as to how they could exploit that product. She then tried it on AI, and it produced a very embarrassing honey, have a good time.
Well, there's a human
That's
touch. Jennifer, who else moderated a group other than myself? Robert.
Yeah, Robert. Okay, I'll be very quick because I know we've got 2 minutes on this one. Our team first went through what bad experiences we had, and then we went to what good experiences we had. There were a number of bad ones. Some of them said people focused on if you asked anything complex, it would fuzz out on us and give us a plausible answer, but not something really good. We had the problem of hallucination, of actually hallucinating data and linking the data and authors together in a legal document that could have been thrown out in court. It was so bad. We also had the issue of a lot of mundane stuff coming back because it doesn't search much. Most of the AI doesn't search more than 3 websites deep. You know, it says it does a complete search of the internet. It doesn't. There's no question about that. How weak it is on actually anything that has to do with things like wisdom, trust, leadership. Good on data stuff, but really making subjective informational judgments is very tough. We then switched over to the good side, and you know, we've had some great stuff on what how it can crunch code and even invent code, how it could be used with PCAP really effectively, how it was a wonderful personal assistant that never complained, was available 24/7, sort of like a dog, and how it could digest webinars really well and give us the feedback quickly.
Yeah, unstructured data.
Yeah, and I had one other experience, and I'll just mention it, Claude.ai, which I've been using extensively for now 8 months, feeding it PDF files and wrestling with it, sort of like training a wild stallion to ride as a racehorse. It's now starting adding real value as an alliance partner with our team. And that alliance partnering as AI as a partner is really important to think about. And now what's happened is Claude, with me at least, has become not reactive to my queries, but proactive, and actually comes out and says, I think you need to explore this a lot more. You know, I've looked at all of our 8 months worth of information, and there are 5 areas here that have great opportunity. And so it's now,
Robert, I'm going to have to cut you off because we're at the top of the hour. So we have to move on. We need another hour on this. I really
2 minutes, I did it.
Yeah, well, we need another hour. Just very briefly from my group, because we talked about many of the same things, but we did lead off with a discussion about ROI and how do you measure the ROI both in cost savings and in its ability to generate incremental revenue and outcomes. And you know, to having more partners per partner manager is not necessarily a benefit, although it could be an outcome, because it does leave the opportunity to go deeper with the partnerships you have. So to kind of wrap things up, I want to make sure everyone is aware of our next upcoming event and hope to see you there. And that one will be with Greg Serafin on unleashing the possibilities, adopt and master an ecosystem strategy to ignite innovation and growth. And hope that we will all see all of you there. And I'd also like to thank ASAP as our sponsor and co-producer in helping deliver these Collaborative Connection monthly episodes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Have a good day.
Thank you.